Welcome. I'm Karenann macdonald, and I am the 13th klanmother. With me, I've got some very exciting people, not only friends, but very important guests. They're like VIPs, but they're not persons. They're just very important people to me. I'm going to introduce and let them introduce themselves. So I'm going to talk about eagle.eye.man and Chief. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself briefly?
Good afternoon. My name is Chief Miko. I'm also a clan mother of the Eastern Territories. I'm sitting in here today to discuss traditional issues, hereditary values, and rights. And I'll pass it back to you, clan mother.
Thank you. And I'd like to introduce eagle.eye.man. Please introduce yourself. And I know you have a wealth of knowledge because we've known each other for like 20 some years. So go ahead, please.
Good. Hello, everyone. Nia Kihu Miskizik Napu, Eagle Eye Man in the tongue. And I would be what you would call a de facto international legal advisor. And I say de facto because I have the knowledge of an international legal advisor. I learned from an old savage named Meredith Quinn, who was an international legal advisor registered at the United Nations. And I learned a lot of the knowledge that he taught.
Thank you. I'm going to go into some very basics. And for us, it may seem basic, but for a lot of people, they are totally discombobulated, not unlike a lot of things that, has been used as weaponry against people. But so has the language been weaponizing people. And so one of the things we want to define, as we know, we stand here as savage sovereigns. None of us are natives. None of us are indigenous. None of us are Aboriginal. And this is a little bit beyond just not only bloodline, but original hereditary bloodlines, as opposed to hybridization. So I'm going to have Tim talk a little bit about the definition of what really sovereignty is, what a savage is versus your private, public, and inhabitants. So I'm going to turn it over to you, please.
Alrighty. Well, as Meredith teaches, under international law, there are three classes of beings. Number one is a savage, number two is a person, and number three is an inhabitant. So the savage comes from the root word silvictus. It means those who live amongst the trees, which means if they're living amongst the trees, then they're living under the law of nature. And basically, if anyone's watched the movie Avatar, that movie was entirely about what I'm explaining to you. That's why they called them savages, because where did they live? Amongst the trees. And they're living under the law of nature because they have a head clan mother, a head female that ruled the clan, which they showed you. She had a chief to speak on her behalf, but he wasn't the boss, she was. Then you have the person, and your person is your average Joe on the street who doesn't know who he is, basically. And you also have then a sub-classification of the word person, which is a private person. Excuse me. A private person, which is royalty. That's what the kings and queens of Europe are. They're private persons. Now, the only thing stopping anybody, a person being a private person, is the knowledge of how to conduct themselves as a private person. And then you have an inhabitant. An inhabitant is a third world citizen. And that means that they have no legitimate clan mother system of governance. So a third world nation means that there's no clan mother system, which is exactly what you have on a concentration camp, or I should say reserve, as it's more commonly called, because they go on a reserve, you go by the elective system. Everybody votes for a chief. There are no clan mothers appointing a chief to speak on their behalf. So, inhabitant, and then words have meanings, and the white man's tongue, the Roman's tongue, is deception. If you call yourself a native, an aboriginal, or a treaty Indian, then you're classifying yourself as a prisoner of war, as an inhabitant, as opposed to the savage that you can be if you believe and practice in your ancient religion, which is that of the klanmother system. Where would you say next, Karen?
I think that's really important because I think there's so much deception right now. People are always trying to encourage people to get them into the private members association, or I listen to a lot of people, and you and I have been to many of these. Again, they don't know the definition of sovereign or savage, yet they're bringing people into common law or the Commonwealth or the private members association. And I think this is the largest deception I've ever seen. And I've been to many of these meetings as you have been, over the last 20 years, that people think about freedom or free men on the land, or PPSAs or uniform commercial codes being in the private. They don't realize they're being really co-opted into these nefarious elite societies, and this becomes an issue. Chief Miko, do you have anything to add to that?
I think what you just said is dead on. It's a key point. I have watched and gone into many of these sovereign society movements. I'm located in the US, and as you guys all know, I have watched and witnessed how the sovereign society has been turned into a domestic terrorism. So it is not okay for us to intertwine the two, and it's a very fine line. What I want everybody to understand is the term savage is what we are, but it was put out there to shame us, demoralize us, and strip us. No much more different than taking away the power of the clan mother, removing the respect of a woman, removing the respect of matriarchal was a way to then gain society as a settler and a colonizer. And as Kim brought up, the voting, the colonizing of the voting, and having this 4-year term, those are all not correct ways in my eyes. And as I stand here, hereditary clan mother, as well as acting chief, we have an assistant chief, unfortunately, a headsman. The terms are twisted, and I think it is very important that we stay solid and we get that knowledge back out there, because it's lost over time and in my eyes, on purpose. Clan mothers are a dying breed. They're going extinct because nobody knows what their position is anymore. Right. And so I would pass it back to you, clan mother.
I'd invite Eagle.eye.man to speak a little bit about the foundations of laws. I'm going to share one of our PowerPoints that we have here. This was actually, and we will refer to, it was brought to, I think, the knowledge to your area. If you could speak a little bit about what Meredith Quinn did and how this all translated and how we got this information before 1994. So on here, as you can see, the foundations of law tie in that everyone, regardless of the color of their skin, or I'll just say almost everyone, if you're not a clone or something these days, or a walk-in, basically you would belong to one of these. So Tim, could you go over a little bit of the excerpts that we see from the Dakota Proclamation, which is found on your website? And I want to thank you for putting that adjacent to Facebook at the Universal Writings of Meredith Quinn, and also how to get a hold of both of us. We'll do at the end. So Eagle Eye, could you go through a little bit of this, what the foundations of international law are, please?
Yeah. Okay, well, the thing I realize about international law actually comes from the law of nations. And the law of nations comes from this original agreements that were signed between the different tribes of the world. Basically, the white tribe were having problems with these guys called the Romans back in Europe. The Romans were going around murdering, pillaging, stealing tribal people's lands. And the tribal people had started to lose their spiritual powers to control the forces of nature, to make the Romans behave. So what ended up happening was the black tribe, the yellow tribe, and the white tribe all went over to the North American Indian, the red tribe, to ask them for help with the Romans. And before the American Indian would help them, they had to sign a treaty with the North American Indian as if there had been a war, even though there wasn't a war, and that they had lost, the white, yellow, and black tribes, surrendering their sovereignty to the American Indian. And those treaties were called with the white tribe, the Noah's Ark Treaty, and with the black tribe, it was the Seal of Solomon, and with the yellow tribe, the Palladium of Troy Treaty. So those three are the other three tribes of the world. And then on the American Indian side, you had the Wampum Belts, Canes of Authority, and Peace Pipe treaties. So you have 6 treaties that are the foundation of international law of nations, from which comes international law. And these treaties are the Romans, the civilized, are bound by. So basically, the American Indian created international law, which you can look up. You'll see if you research. Tribal custom and usage is a source of international law, is what it says. So if it's a source of international law, then it's obviously superior to it, because it's what international law comes from. And there was something else I wanted to add there, but it flew my mind.
One of the things I might add is that people always go, where is this written? I always like, why do you think it's, we do things orally and it's not writ. We don't do writs, unlike, other people. But there are certain artifacts from original customs, usages, and laws that have been preserved. I know myself, I've been taken as the White Bear clan mother, but I've been taken to meet with the people that held those copper plates that are hundreds and thousands of years old. They were taken to Ottawa and done a banishing ritual. And I can show you a picture of those copper plates. But not only that, we have things, as you have alluded to so eloquently, is about the Cleopatra tribes. And there is such a thing called the Cleopatra's obelisk or needle, which is presently sitting in New York City. And we can show you a picture of that. There's also Aztec and different stones like that were used as territorial markers and things like this in the areas of Mexico and New Mexico. And I think it's really important. Tim, could you elaborate a little bit more on the international law about what casus omissus is, please, and what the difference is between that? And as I've talked to many different, I'll just say, foreign agents that did their allegiance to the monarchy, the Queen, or a BAR, British accredited registrant foreign agent, otherwise known as a lawyer and an attorney, is that they were basically studying what's called CJS to me, or corpus juris secundum, which defines and segregates them into basically people that are dead to the letter of the law. So Tim, could you elaborate a little bit more on the casus omissus, please?
Yeah. Casus omissus is a legal term that means a case not provided for in the law or statute to be governed by the common law. And that was something that a Judge Urbom had said to a group of Indians that were trying to claim sovereignty. So what he was telling them is, we cannot bring a clan mother into the court, because a clan mother is above the law. She is the law. Because a case to be not provided for in a law or statute to be governed by common law. And when you look up common law is usages and customs of immemorial antiquity. So antiquity means antique means primitive means original. Usage is the repetition of an act over a long period of time. For example, being ruled by a head clan mother and picking a new one each time the old one dies, and carrying on with that usage system of governance. Custom is the law that comes from usage, and you can have usage without custom, but you cannot have custom without usage. An immemorial is out of memory. So basically, the usages and customs of out of memory original times. Tribal custom and usage. And also in regards to the marker, the obelisks, as they were known, obelisks were tribal territorial markers, Meredith says. And the one you're talking about, the Cleopatra's needle, contains a description of the Treaty of 408. So earlier we were talking about the foundation of international law and those 6 treaties. So what happened was, after that, those treaties were signed, the Indians told the white, yellow, black tribal peoples what they needed to know to go back and defeat the Romans in warfare. And they did. And that's where in the history books, they talk of a description of a Visigoth named Alaric who sacked Rome, which was the capital of the Roman Empire in 408 AD. So the first time in Rome's history that the capital had ever been sacked, they were defeated in warfare. So the Romans had to sign an unconditional surrender at that time. And that treaty was known variously by the different tribes as the Camel's Eye, Eagle Bowl, or Eye of Isis Treaty. And that's where the Romans promised to do everything humanly possible to protect tribal custom and usage. And I say humanly possible because that's how they describe themselves. As a savage, you are remote from human. You're not a human being, which is why when people try to claim their Geneva Declaration of Human Rights, has absolutely nothing to do with you as a savage, because you're not a human being. Savage is remote from human. But that treaty of 408, the terms and conditions that the Romans are bound by, is still what they're bound by today. But for them to honor that, you have to be the kind of Indian or tribal peoples that signed it in the first place, which was savages and barbarians, those that were ruled by clan mothers. And a copy of that is what sits on the Cleopatra's Needle in, was it Times Square, New York?
It's actually in the Central Park. So it's located here just on, I've been screen sharing here for people. They can go back and look at the hieroglyphics themselves, but there are many obelisks, but this one actually sits right in Central Park by the Temple of Dendar, by the Kennedy Arts as well, and the Museum of Arts in here. So easy enough to see. Right by it's a little thing called the Central Turtle Pond too, but people can look that up. So I've got that on the screen share for people. And I think that that's really important that you bring up that it was done in Greek, Coptic Greek, and the Chamatic language. So it's very easy to Google any of these, different sites, right?
Now also, and the other part of that is, and this is what people have to wrap their heads around, at the signing of that treaty, 408 AD, the head chief of the Americus Empire was present in Rome at the time of that treaty, and he was a signatory to that treaty. He signed that treaty on behalf of all of the Indians in North and South America, which is why it protects them and what the Romans are bound to. So I say people have to wrap their heads around, because in history they teach us that Columbus discovered the Americas in 1492, which is complete bullshit and a lie. He didn't discover anything. He actually had detailed maps of the coastline that he was heading to, latitude and longitude, before he ever left port. He knew where he was going before he ever left, because the white tribe had been trading with the red tribe for over 1,000 years before Columbus supposedly discovered it, which, as I said, is why the head chief of the Americus Empire was in Rome at the signing of that treaty at that time and was a signatory to it. And I'm stressing that word signatory because signatory is the one exact identifying term to a sovereign, because only sovereigns can sign a treaty. And for anybody that's listening to this and thinks of treaties 1 to 11 or any of the other treaties in America, the United States of America, what they call treaties are international agreements and can be called a treaty, even though they are not actually a treaty. And the reason they're not treaties is because sovereigns never signed them. So only sovereigns can sign a treaty. That's what makes you signatory.
So this brings into some of the things that the UNDRIP, and we'll just use it as an example because it's been happening quite often in the last couple of months. We'll just say within Canada, which is really the 12 navigable waters outside the land in the ocean, by the way, and they're corporations that are de facto, as is the US. But in here, what brings to that point is what you're saying is that the people that, and they've assigned some bands and reserves, which is a shuffle, okay, it's the shell game. They are actually giving it to their own partners or to share or members like shareholders in the corporation. So the band and the reserve being a prisoner of war or a corporation or a concentration camp never did have jurisdiction alloyedly or entitled at any time. And this is something that we're seeing. They're taking over Kamloops. They're trying to take over these bands and reserves into the city of Vancouver, which is displacing people, which we are totally against the way these things have gone in. One of the things
Well, you notice what they've given them is Aboriginal title.
I noticed,
Yep.
Aboriginal is not an original.
Right.
Aboriginal.
Yes. AB, ab,
Away from.
is a Latin prefix meaning away from. So an aboriginal is away from original, because original is a savage. So you see, they gave them aboriginal title. They haven't given them the actual title because they don't hold it anyway. It still belongs to the savages. It's just the Indian doesn't know who he is anymore.
Now, one of the
For the
interesting
most
points
part.
here, I just put up here about the great migrations and stuff people can come back to. And you've spoken a lot about, previous, the deluge and the flood and the ice ages and stuff, which we're going into another pole shift right away here. And the Vero man and the Melbourne man, that basically, when we define even the role of the firstborn women or the oldest of the mitochondrial DNA, it's in our genetics here. That is actually what the clan system is of the firstborn, that these were handed down through the mitochondrial different chromosomes, genetics, all that sort of thing from the creator and the great spirit. But one of the things, not only in Canada, we have where Judge C.C. Curran has said that, the lands belong to the clanmothers. And also it was validated as well by United States versus Consolidated Wounded Knee, that Judge Urban in the States also made mentions of the Casas Novices, and that there are also white clanmothers, and that these clanmothers can control their lineages in here. And that also that they didn't use the word chiefs, they use the words dragons or headsmen or other different things here. But right now, this is something that needs to be put into place. Chief Miko, do you have anything to add here at this point?
I would like to see what your thoughts are, both of your thoughts on what's going on in BC. Let's just call it like it is, BC, and I would assume it's going to be issues in the U.S. Big discussions of the Lumbee tribe, how that situation's moved forward, and if that's going to be another roundabout way that we deal with a land issue. If you have a confrontation with people that are being removed from their homes, and we all were discussing a video earlier, they've been given 2 years to be out of this home. What's your thoughts on that, Tim and Clanmother Karen? And what are we supposed to do as original title people, savages, to make sure that everyone is equally taken care of? Not that I think that the land claim and the giving back is okay, but people are being thrown out of their homes with nowhere to go. What's your thoughts on that?
Tim, do you want to address that? And while I have this on the screen here, people will be able to see, they can validate that these copper plates and original treaties we had that were severed. I was part of that actually group and part of those council meetings back in 2013 and 14. So I'm just going to put them on. But Tim, do you want to talk about this? This is actually where I met with all the different tribes from the West Coast here. And after I went to put in for an arrest warrant international for Queen Elizabeth in Kamloops at Sean Buckley's law office, my cousin, by the way, another Bear clan, and into the RCMP military, and also to the sheriff's office, and also to land titles. So I just want to show people there are original things. We don't work on paper. Tim, could you address that point that Chief Miko brought up, please?
Well, I mean, I don't really know what to say on it, right? It's up to the original peoples that own the land. But see, that said, it's a smoke and mirrors, because they gave them Aboriginal title. They don't actually own the land. Nobody can own the land, but what you can own is title to the land. and that's called cession jurisdiction. And cession jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, is held by the clan mothers. See, the entity that they gave it back to, the Musqueam band or whichever it is not a sovereign government. It's a bunch of prisoners of war. And see, if I remember correctly, the Aboriginal title doesn't include all the mineral rights under the land.
Right.
Anyway. So you see, they're not giving them, if it was truly their territory, then it would include the mineral rights and everything else as well.
Of which
But
they're still getting ahead and taking the mineral rights now too, which is a problem that we're seeing across our tribes globally. Amazon's getting really hit hard with it. A lot of our tribes that are in the southern areas are having to stand up and hope that they're heard at the UN. What I see is that our clan mothers need to be located, and we all need to come to the table so we can do what needs to get done. And as you see right there on the screen, it says the power of the clan mothers of the Iroquois. It is important that our people are aligned in what our prophecies and our laws said before the settlers took it over.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, that's the point, right? Right now, you have very few people that are aware of what I'm explaining, right? The clan mother system, and that it is actually, it's the only thing that the white man recognizes as sovereign is the women. And it's like Meredith said, don't kid yourself. The white man knows what clan mothers are because he's got clan mothers of his own that he has to listen to. See, the thing about the private person, the royalty, person also means imitator. And the Romans go by what's known as gens. The gens is the same as a clan in its meaning. Clan and gens both mean family. If you look up the meaning of the word family, though, it means you're a slave. If you go, say you're from the family of, because it's a slave description of a household slave, servant. So gens is the imitation of a clan. The Roman white clan mother is the imitation of the savage clan mother. They are claiming title to the territories of all the tribes around the world, basically, not just North and South America, Australia, New Zealand, the Maoris, all around, in the absence of those peoples having their own clan mothers and filling those offices. Because right now, most people don't know who they are according to tribal custom and usage and the clan system way of being and organizing yourself. So what really needs to happen is the people to go back to their original religion. Because there was also a group of 65 Sioux Indians that were trying to claim sovereignty. And the judge told them, he denied their sovereignty claim and said to them, you cannot go to church on Sunday and be an Indian on Monday.
That's
which
solid
sounds
advice.
kind of funny.
I think it's
But
pretty solid advice.
well, it's absolutely legally true, though.
So, you know, it's like
Because,
having the smudge bowl in the Bible in each hand.
well,
It
that's
doesn't work.
exactly what he was pointing out.
For sure.
You literally cannot be a sovereign Indian and say that you're a Christian. Okay, I'm not trying to offend anyone. This is law, exact to the letter of the law. You cannot be a Roman Catholic and claim to be a sovereign. You can't be a Christian. You can't be anything else, because that religion means law, and that law is a different law from your original law. Your original law is what came from the Creator, which is what you find in nature. In nature, amongst the animal kingdoms, you find the women rule. Queen bee, queen ant, horses, elephants, head matriarchs, deer, moose, elk, bear, all have a head female. The wolf, everybody's heard of the alpha male, but not many people seem to be aware of the alpha female that actually runs the pack. Which is why savage, those who live amongst the trees, living under the law of nature, the law of nature entails the female rules, which is why it's known as the supreme law of the land, comes from the Creator and supersedes God. because God is a white man's religion that was forced upon the Indian, and it's not the first law of nature. It's an imitation of, or however you want to describe it. I'm not saying that to upset anybody. This is just law. It is the way it is.
You're right on. You're right on. I'm so sorry, Klanmother, but you're right on, Eagle Eye, and it's a touchy subject. And this is the same stuff I've had discussions with other hereditary chiefs over. Our ways have been twisted and slowly removed by actions of the settlers or the colonizers. And then whenever you bring it up, it is you're not being politically correct. And so, oh, how dare you? But the truth of the matter is we didn't have a God before because we didn't even know what God was. That term is their term. So how can we be in their law? We were in our law with the creator, the grandfather. So you're dead on.
Well, yes, because remember,
go ahead.
I was going to say, remember when they first arrived and discovered and then started settling, was one of the very first things that the white man did, the Romans did. They sent out missionaries and priests all over the continent, converting the Indian to their religion.
Slapping us on the wrist till we quit saying our language with a nun on the other end of the stick. Right. I'm sorry, but it's time to have the hard conversations like what you're saying. Those are hard conversations, and kudos to you, kudos to all the hereditary chiefs that are standing up right now, because it is really hard to have that conversation. No different than a lot of the political arenas that you're seeing whenever you're in a left or a right conversation. That left or right wants to turn into an argument, which it shouldn't. It's factual. So very good.
Right. And the point is, if they were converting you to their religion, well, what were they converting you from? Your own original religion.
My savageness. Yeah.
Exactly. Precisely. So, where were we, Karen, on your... Because there's a lot of ground trying to cover things in a chronological order.
Right. Well, we're just about wrapping up here in a couple minutes of our part one of our series. So I wanted to really direct people just to get some basic, I think, definitions. Like, we've been trying to educate people. I was just showing people where to go to the website that you set up on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, it's called Universal Writings of Meredith Quinn. And you put some really interesting things. And I see that you've been trying to have a little conversation with AI and ChatGPT, but there actually is, they're learning, it's giving out the information on here. One of the things as well that we are referring a lot to is something that is called the Teaching of Meredith Quinn and the Dakota Proclamation. Those are actually found online and also at my YouTube site, which is called Karenann macdonald. And in there, I did a live, and I actually have an entire playlist for people they can go to where I've actually put some of these very, I think, critical or major information that people need to, apprise themselves up. And one of the things in here, I'm going to also see how to get a hold of both of you. And then we're going to take a little break, and then we will do a part 2 for a series, because I'm sure people are going to have a lot of questions or where to get a hold of us. And we need to reset up these original council systems that we have been all talking about and all been trained for and all born into in a way. But one of the things in the playlist that you are referring to is I have a playlist as well as you do on there, and the playlist goes in here underneath something that is called Clanmother's Law, Savage Sovereignty. And in here there's everything from the Star Nations and Turtle Islands to the prophecies to going into a lot of the different things I've actually talked about as well, because people don't know these terms very well, right? So, Chief Miko, where can people get a hold of you if they have any questions and what your band is doing down there?
We are a band of the Choctaw people. They can get a hold of me at my name, which is mikohehewuti at choctawturtletribe.org, which I can send you that so you can add it into the information once you post this call. I will say this, you do have the 2 branches, hereditary or not. We are straight hereditary. And if you want knowledge on that, and if I don't have the answer, I'll find it for you. I think it is very important. And thank you, Klanmother, for getting this stuff set up. It's the only way we're going to get things corrected.
Also, I'd like to say, as we were discussing before, how their language is deceptive. You're not a band. You're a tribe.
I'm a clan.
Yes, you're a clan, and clans make up a tribe, and a tribe is a sovereign nation.
Yes. Yep, you're absolutely right. People, it's easy to have the words even put into your own head that it is hard to unwire them. And I could give some great examples that would take us down a 30-minute road of conversation, but it is so easy to see how actions of something have changed it. And in the United States, everything's federal. It is, then from there you're voted in, and we're all tribes and assistant chiefs, and the whole terminology is backwards. So I stand alone in a huge, vast majority of tribes in the United States that don't even understand their roots. And so, yes, I find this great and very important for us to get out there to the public and as well to our brothers and sisters. So thank y'all. I yield.
Thank you again. So thank you for joining me. I'm Clanmother Karenann MacDonald. You can get a hold of me as well at klanmother13@gmail.com, and that's with the K. And I thank you for joining us. All these links will be put underneath. So have a wonderful and blessed day. Spaha.